started. So welcome. My name is Katie Shuck, and I am the Executive Outreach Director for CybHER at Dakota State University. We are thrilled to have you all join us again today, whether you are with us in person or watching us in our recorded webinar on our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are so excited to be featuring Alyssa Miller, who I'll tell you about in just a second. But I also want to introduce our co-founders, Drs. Ashley Podorotsky and Pam Rowland, in here, who co-founded CybHER in 2013. We also have our outreach director, my cohort here, Kanthi Narakonda, who will be doing our Q&A today. Now, before I introduce Alyssa, I do want to remind everybody that if you do have questions, you can ask them via the Q&A that you'll find at the bottom of the screen. So just submit any questions that you have there in that Q&A, and we will get to those towards the end of the session. Now, I'd like to introduce our wonderful professional today, who I am so thrilled to have her on here because her research with deepfakes just really intrigues me, and I know it will you all as well. But Alyssa Miller, who is a security advocate, a hacker, an author, a public speaker, you name it, she does it. Absolutely wonderful security advocate who has a developer background, and it has really helped her to do more and more research on application security and security overall. So without saying anything further, Alyssa, I'm going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Katie. I appreciate it. And hello, everybody. It's great to have you all here with us. And so, yeah, my name is Alyssa Miller. As Katie mentioned, I wear kind of a lot of different hats, or people know me in a lot of different ways. I am a lifelong hacker, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I do a lot of research into security topics. I've been working in IT most of my life, and author, blogger. I do some of those things as well. But you know, I always tell people that the story I start with is I was one of those kids early on. The reason I say I'm a lifelong hacker is I really, from the time as far back as I can remember, I was one of those kids I really liked to take apart my toys, take apart my family's electronics, things like that, and figure out just how did they work. I'd like to disassemble them, figure out what the parts were, what the components were, put them back together, make sure they still worked. You know, sometimes I'd change them up, make them work a little differently. And about the time I was 12, I'd kind of been obsessed with computers for a long time, watching different shows that were on TV when I was a kid. You know, these days, you know, we've had like Bill Nye and whatever do the science shows. Well, back in my day, it was Mr. Wizard, and he sometimes would have computers on. And so when I was 12, I saved up enough money and I bought myself a computer. And at that point, I started to teach myself programming and some other things. And it was about that time that I actually started hacking computers. So before we had the internet, we had these other online services where you had a modem that dialed out on the phone line, and it connected to this service, and you could get things like your news, and you could play games and all the stuff that we kind of take for granted these days that we just do with the internet. And so I done some things there that were, you know, maybe not very ethical, but it taught me a lot. It forced me to learn how computers worked. I had to learn lots of different things about the way that they function, and you know, and through that I learned quite a bit. Now, what's funny is, despite all of this, I never thought that computers would be a career I would want to get into. I didn't really see that as being a career. And when I started going to college, I had decided I was going to be a doctor. So I started at a university in Milwaukee called Marquette University, and I was in a pre-med program because I was getting ready to go to med school. But 3 semesters of chemistry, I kind of decided that was not what I wanted to do. I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't something I was having a lot of fun with. So I started looking at, well, what else can I do? And I found a computer science major in the course catalog for my college. And so I already knew how to program computers because I taught myself, and decided that might be a really easy way to go. So I started taking classes, got into that degree program, and about that same time, the way things were going in technology, it was really easy to find programming jobs. They were very desperate. This was when the internet was really just starting to take off, and they really needed programmers. So I got myself a full-time job as a programmer. I started working for a company that made software and all the back-end software for financial services companies or banks. And so I started writing some of their software. And I did that for almost a decade. So 9 years, I wrote software for them before someone in their security team came to me and said, hey, I've worked with you on a number of projects. I see that, you're really good on the software side. We'd like to have you join our security testing team and be a penetration tester. And so I didn't really know too much about what that meant, but she was really confident that I would be good at it. So I joined that team, and what I found out is penetration testing was hacking. I was the hacker that they paid to try to break into our own system so I could figure out where they were weak, and I could show them how, not only how they were weak, how I broke into them, but how they could fix them so that when the real bad guys attempted to break into our systems, we could have them protected. And so I did that for a number of years, and I built a pretty good team. I was responsible for a number of individuals around the country and around the world. In fact, I had people in India who worked with me. And by the time I was 30, I was managing this whole program for a large, this company, they're a Fortune 200 company. They're global. They run the back-end software for banks around the globe, a lot of names that you would recognize. And so I did that for a lot of years. So I was with that company a total of about 15 years. And at that point, I decided after 15 years, okay, I'd seen enough of financial services and banking. I wanted to see more. And so I got into security consulting because, well, consulting, you get to see all of the different industries. And so within the consulting organization that I joined, I came in and was responsible for building a team of consultants who were hired by all sorts of different companies. And it didn't matter, we worked with banking companies, of course, but we worked with technology companies, we worked with healthcare, basically any type of company who had a need to make sure that their computer systems were secure, we helped them do that. Sometimes it was through penetration testing, like I've been doing in financial services. Other times it was through other services that we offer, just working with them on how to build secure software, how to structure different programs, and so forth. And oftentimes that included working with governments, working with the Secret Service, the WoSEC, which is a banking organization. I did work with the Secret Service. I did work with the Department of Defense. So getting into a lot of pretty sensitive areas that had to do with protecting not only the US government, but other governments around the globe. And so did that for a lot of years. And over that time, I started to do more and more research. So not just trying to help these companies, these government entities, these national and international foundations all secure their software and secure their systems and their networks, but I started doing research into how do we make software more secure, finding ways that software could be exposed and finding ways that we could do things better, and doing a lot of that different research. And that research led to me doing a lot of public speaking. So a lot of what I do today, Katie mentioned my role as a security advocate. Well, what that really means is I work for a company that sells security software, but I'm not out there to sell software. I'm out there to help people, whether it's in the security industry, whether it's in organizations of any type, understand things that they can do to be better about securing everything. So, when I think about where we're at today, computers and digital systems and electronics, they're our way of life. Everything that we touch has some connectivity to it. you hear these idea of like the Internet of Things and different connected devices or smart devices. Some of the crazy ones I've seen more recently that people have been connecting things like there's a internet connected curling iron. I'm not quite sure why you need your curling iron connected to the internet, but you can have one. Internet connected candles where you can light your candles remotely. That sounds really scary to me, but people apparently want these things. But doing a lot of research into that, and it's really about how do we protect people. So we hear stories in the news about these different breaches where attackers get a hold of people's private data and they're able to use that information to attack people, to steal identities, to do all sorts of really just terrible, terrible things. And so my goal within the security space is really to help us, everyone in the world, try to make things a little better. So me and my counterparts in security, that's a lot of what we do. And so one of the areas I've really been digging deep into lately, and Katie kind of mentioned this a little bit, I've done a lot of work looking at machine learning and artificial intelligence. The two kind of are related in a lot of ways, but they also are very different. And machine learning is where I spent a lot of time doing a lot of different research. And in particular, one of the areas that really interests me in machine learning is this idea of deep fake. And if you don't know what a deep fake is, basically it can be any form of media. So it might be still images, it might be audio. A lot of people know it from seeing deepfake videos, but it's all this type of media that's created artificially using machine learning or deep learning neural networks. And what they're doing is they're creating these very, very realistic media, whether it's the pictures or video or whatever, that just aren't real. So some of the more common applications you'll see for this in deepfakes would be videos where it looks like a celebrity is doing and saying things that really would be out of character. There's a really popular one that was done a few years ago of Barack Obama, saying all sorts of things about Republicans and whatever that you wouldn't expect him to say in public. Sometimes they're funnier ones. Like there's one of Elon Musk's face on this little baby that's running around and doing all sorts of different things, and all these crazy videos. But there's a lot of real security threat involved there as well. And so a lot of the research I've been doing is understanding, one, how are these videos being created and what's the technology behind it? And that's changing very, very quickly. We started to see these things come out in 2017, and now in 2020, they've advanced to the point that some of them are very, very indiscernible. You can't tell that they're fake. And so with that, there's also a lot of research that's being done in a lot of different academic institutions, different universities and colleges on how do we detect these? How do we use other technology to detect that this media is fake and let people know, hey, this video, you shouldn't trust it because it was produced using machine learning and not actually recorded using a camera or whatnot. And so that's been a lot of the work. I've been speaking on some of the threats around this, how that could be dangerous to people. And how it could be dangerous, we think of it, a lot of times people talk about how it's dangerous in politics, where someone like a Barack Obama or Donald Trump or other politicians might have information spread about them that's not true. But how could it also affect companies like Amazon or Tesla or Facebook? And so sharing that information and talking about how do we detect it? How do we fight back against this? And so I've been doing a lot of public speaking at a lot of different conferences on those topics, sharing that information. And so I know, Katie mentioned that she's seen some of the materials that I have available out there. But in the end, I interact with a lot of people. And what that's done is it's given me a really strong platform. I know some people like to chat about the fact that I've got a lot of Twitter followers and I have a lot of reach. But what that's done is it's given me a platform to really talk about the fact that it's in technology, there's room here for everybody. And, it's not just traditionally technology was all about the boys, the men, and when girls talked about wanting to be involved in technology, oftentimes girls were being told, no, that's not a space we were discouraged from getting into technology. And so a lot of the work that I also do is centered around trying to raise awareness of how within technology, when we're trying to secure technology, we need to have diverse voices. We need to have people with all different perspectives helping us out, because if it's just the white men who are telling us how we secure technology, we're not going to get any better at this. We need to understand it. And indeed, we see it in machine learning, in particular cases where machine learning technologies fail because we don't have enough women involved. We don't have enough people of color involved. We don't have all those diverse backgrounds. And so there's many biases and things that get built into our technology that cause that technology not to work. And so I also am involved in a number of organizations that seek to bring those diverse voices into this community. So I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of very impressive individuals. And it's something that if I find out that there's other people out there, whether they're women, they're Black people, they're Native American people, they're Hispanic people who are having a hard time getting into this industry, it's something that I want to help build them up and encourage them to be a part of it, because there's a space here for everyone. And it's something that's very near to and dear to my heart, that we really build a stronger community by raising up everybody. And so all of the exciting things that I've gotten to do, whether it's speaking on stage with a director of the CIA or talking to people in high-ranking positions within the government or whatever it is, it's given me that opportunity to raise that message. And so it's an exciting world to be in. And it's one of those things I really like to encourage others. If you're interested, if you're curious about it, dig into it. There's so much to learn here, and so much. My biggest passion about this all centers around the fact that technology is changing every day, and I love to learn about it. And because I'm in this space, I get exposed to all of it. And so if that's something that interests you, I can't encourage you enough to be more involved and to really dig in and start to learn some of these things. So with that, I know we have limited time, so I want to make sure that I open this up to any questions that might be out there. But first, I just want to say thank you for joining us and for giving me this little bit of time just to share some information about myself and kind of how I got to be here.
Thank you for coming on here. I mean, you have such an impressive bio. I am so intimidated by it. I'm not kidding. So it's really our pleasure to host you on here. And we do have a number of questions for you already. Okay. So the first one I have is, I have an 80-year-old daughter who expressed interest in coding and robots. So I want to give her an opportunity to explore this field. How do I make it possible?
Well, there's a few things that you can do. One of the really great ways, I love hearing that she's interested in robots, because there's a lot of what they'll refer to as makers networks out there, where kids want to get involved in robotics, and that gets them involved in programming too. With an 8-year-old in particular, one of the things that's most important in trying to help them get into programming is that they're able to do something where they can actually see tangible results. If I think about how I learned programming, it was very much write this little hello world application, and then you moved on and you did more and more things, but they didn't really do anything. Well, with robotics in particular, kids can sit down and they can learn right away how to do some of these things, how to make things and how to make them work, and they can see their robots work. A great organization, especially for an 8-year-old, is look into an organization called Hacks for Kids. Hack for Kids is a nonprofit, and they work with kids who are interested in coding, robotics, security, and they show up at different conferences and they hold these events to really help teach these kids how to get involved in those different areas of technology. Additionally, some things you can look into, there are some programming languages that are geared towards kids. Google has one, which the name is escaping me now, but there's another one that was put together by MIT called Scratch. And they're very visual, and they're things that, again, kids learn by Blockly, that's the one from Google, because you learn by putting together these different blocks, and the different blocks are ultimately end up being different forms of logic for a program, but they're done in ways that the kids can really understand and see, okay, here's how I assemble this logic such that I can create a program that does something or draws something. And then as they get older, there's things, Roblox is a great one. So Lua is a programming language or scripting language that works with Roblox, where kids now they're interacting in these online gaming communities where they can script out different parts of these games using programming languages. And so those are all things that they can start to get into. And, you know, it's making sure that they have the opportunity to explore it. But yeah, I can't say enough about the work that Hack for Kids does. And I would definitely encourage you to look into that more.
Thank you. So you had mentioned that you started coding very young. So do you have a favorite coding language or scripting language?
So I've seen a few. I would say these days I spend most of my time in Python. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, from the security perspective, a lot of the tools and a lot of the scripts and things that are available are written in Python. Python is very popular in the security space, and so that is one that you see used a lot there. Additionally, within machine learning, a lot of the libraries and things that we use in that space, whether it's deepfake related or just other machine learning concepts, a lot of that is built using Python. And so, yeah, I would say for me personally, Python is definitely my favorite right now.
Awesome. So I have a few questions about your work with deepfakes. So one of the questions we have is, how can companies protect themselves from deepfakes that are being created so as to appear that they promote incorrect information, and those that make it seem like they're coming from company executives?
So the tough part is there's no way right now really to stop deepfakes from being created. There are some researchers that are trying to do some of that, but it's really tough, because at the end of the day, all it takes to create a deepfake is if I can get one video of you, or I can get some still images of you from the internet, I can use those and leverage them to help my machine learning algorithms learn how to produce your face. And so you think about how many of us are putting things out online, or if you have a high-ranking executive within a company, of course, there's going to be lots of pictures and video of them on the internet that someone can use to create a deepfake. So really, it's all about how do we handle that information that gets out there about our company. And what I tell organizations is you have to have a plan. So within companies, we have this idea of incident response plans, where typically it's been, how do I respond to an incident where my computer systems are attacked or my computer systems go down for some reason? How do I recover from that and keep my business going? That was always what we talked about. But now we need to treat misinformation that gets out there in the form of, it could very well be deepfakes, it could be other things. We need to treat that the same way. We need to have a plan for how we respond to it quickly, how we make sure we get the right information out there, and how we address that information in a way that speaks to the people who are believing the incorrect information, so that they'll now believe the truth. And that's a real challenge. And so there's a lot of strategies that I talk about in how to do that.
So you talked about diversity, increasing more voices at the table when talking about security. Were there any obstacles that you had to face in your career because of discrimination?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And they continue today. I mean, unfortunately, there's no denying that. As much as I would love to say, yeah, you know what, it's a really friendly world up here nowadays for women and for people of color and for the LGBT and so forth, it's not. The cybersecurity community is super friendly and very open, but there are still those personalities out there. And unfortunately, it only takes a few of them to ruin it, right? And so there's still a lot of work to be done. I will say that things have vastly improved. They may have taken a bit of a step back over the last few years, but there is more awareness to it. I think we continue to see more and more allies from, and I'll be blunt, that white male space that's very dominant in technology in particular. We're seeing more and more of them become allies and really wanting to help women, help Black people, help Hispanic people, help Native American people, you name it, whatever group. I mean, we can name all the various underrepresented groups, but there are a lot of allies. And so, yes, I've experienced it. I've had those moments. I've had, you know, I've been passed over for promotions and things because of it. And it is unfortunate, but I've also had a lot of really great opportunities, and I've had a lot of really great success. And because of that, that's why I want to help build those others who maybe they do experience that, but then they also have a friendly voice here that shows them, hey, just because you had that experience, it's not the end of the road. It's not the thing that's going to stop you from progressing. You can still be successful. You will still be successful. Stay to your passion. Stay true to what you want to, what makes you and drives you, because that's what's going to be most important. That's what's going to be fulfilling for you as a human.
Earlier, you said you are part of certain communities and groups that do help promote diversity. What are some of them, just for our audience?
Sure. So the most notable is I am a chapter leader for an organization called Women of Security, or WoSEC. So our goal really is to create local community-based meetups I think we have, I want to say over 100 chapters now, and we cover 48 different countries, just local meetups. So for instance, I live kind of in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. And so I lead our Milwaukee chapter. And we have small, when we're in non-coronavirus times, we usually do monthly brunches where we get a group of women together. And it's just about building networks and being able to have that visibility that, hey, there are all these other women in this space. I'm also a member of WoSEC, or Women in Cybersecurity. And so I've spoken at their conference. I've put my name out there for mentorship and so forth, just to try to help them as well. And I was also involved actually in a really neat organization that's come about more recently called Share the Mic in Cyber. And it started as just an activity online on Twitter one day where a bunch of people in security who, you know, have a little bit more of a platform like myself, paired us up with Black individuals in cybersecurity who, you know, needed a little bit of lift. And we were able to really make it about them, make the entire day about them, sharing their stories, giving them that opportunity to really have that voice that sometimes disappears into the background because they are so underrepresented in the technology space and because of some of the discrimination that still exists. And so that was a really exciting opportunity to spotlight all the great work that's being done from more diverse backgrounds than just you know, those that typically get seen on a daily basis in the security community.
Awesome. Thank you. I wrote them down. I'm gonna look them up.
For sure.
One thing, what's the coolest thing you've ever done?
Coolest thing I've ever done. So do we mean professionally, or I'll go with professionally. If we want to go personal, I can get into that too. But I think professionally, probably the coolest thing I've ever done. And I'll focus more on the hacking space. I'll do two. One, I created a deepfake video of myself. So I actually took Alyssa Milano's face and I superimposed it on myself in a video. The results were good. They weren't great. Like, you could watch it and you could probably tell pretty quickly it was fake, but it was fun. It was really neat to actually do that on my own computer. The other one, though, from more of a hacking perspective, is I took an application when I was working for that financial services company. And within about 3 minutes from the time I started, I had complete control of that entire server that it ran on. So not just the application, but actually the computer system it was running on. And I had total control to do whatever I wanted to it. So to be able to to break into a computer system that quickly and to just what we call own it that quickly, that's pretty exciting from a hacker perspective. Now, it's a little terrifying when you think about it's the company you're working for, and we have this system that was out there on the internet that anybody could access that was that easy to hack. But it was also pretty cool when you know that your skills are that good that you can get into an application that quickly.
That is amazing. In 3 minutes. Wow. Awesome. Our last question for you today is, what advice would you give to the youth that are watching this right now?
Be true to the passions that you have. Don't let anybody talk you out of what it is that you want to do. I don't care how far-fetched it seems. I don't care how crazy they tell you it is. Be true to that, because you can spend your whole life trying to fulfill what other people say you should do or what you should be, and you're not going to be happy. You're going to be happy when you go after that dream that you have. And I'll tell you what, you may not hit that dream, because the world is very interesting that way. You may find that after a few years of really trying to go after that dream, you're not so interested in that dream anymore. It's not as exciting and as passionate, and you might steer yourself in a different direction. But that's how you discover those things. And so it's crucial that you don't be afraid, no matter how discouraging people might be and how they talk about what it is that you want to accomplish. Don't be discouraged by it. Go after it. You might learn that that's not something you want to do, but you'll find yourself pivoting or turning into something that you really like. And, I think about that myself, how I ended up in pre-med and ultimately found my way into programming and all this other stuff, and here I sit today having done some really exciting work. And it's just because I kept following the things that made me most excited or made me most happy.
That is amazing advice for everybody. And I believe that to be 100% truth right there. So thank you so much, Alyssa. For everybody who is joining us today, I am going to launch a poll that if you can fill it out, that would greatly help us just to know a little bit more about the people who are attending this. I also want to remind you that as you register, or if you send us an email via our website, we will send you a little flat CybHER girl that you can take, similar to Flat Stanley, but it's our wonderful CybHER girl, and take selfies with, post those around. Let us know where CybHER girl is traveling. We also have some stickers we can send you as well. Next week, we have another great presentation. So be on the lookout for information on that. You can go to www.cybher.org/CybHER-conversations and find information about next week's and future conversations that we're having. Again, we're so happy to have you on here, Alyssa. We thank you so much, and we look forward to everybody continuing to follow us on our social media and joining us for our weekly conversations. So thank you, y'all.